The Raspberry Pi doesn't include an on-off switch. To turn it off, you use the shutdown option in the main menu. To turn it off, you use the shutdown option in the main menu of the Raspberry Pi and then pull out the power cord from the Raspberry Pi itself. That's not very elegant. Instead, I'm going to show you how to create a simple power button. Hi, I'm Mark Neiman Ross, and welcome to this week's edition of Raspberry Pi Weekly. Every week, we explore the Raspberry Pi and share useful tips. A power button is really easy. You'll need a normally off push button, 2 jumper wires, and a small software modification. As always, unplug your Raspberry Pi before connecting anything to the GPIO. Now, connect one side of the push button to ground. I'm using Raspberry Pi GPIO pin number 6. Then connect the other side of the push button to board pin 5, also known as GPIO 03. That's all the hardware required. Now, let's do some software modifications. You'll need to make one software modification to make the power switch work. Open up a terminal window, cd to /boot, and then sudo nano config.txt. Scroll down using the arrow key and go to the end of config.txt. Add these 2 lines to the end of config.txt. First, a hash mark, because this is a comment, and let somebody else know what it is that you're doing. And then type in DT overlay, an equal sign, GPIO-shutdown, and then a return. Now hit Control O to write this out, and Control X to exit. Now you can close the terminal window. By default, this project overrides the I2C interface, so you'll need to make sure to disable that. Go to the Raspberry Pi menu, Preferences, Raspberry Pi Configuration, Interface, then make sure that I2C is disabled. Finally, reboot the Raspberry Pi. When the Raspberry Pi reboots, push the button to shut down. Then push the button to restart. If you still need I2C, switch the pin specification by adding GPIO pin equals 3. For example, to change to GPIO pin 4, add GPIO pin equals 4. Be aware that using any other pin than GPIO 3 will disable the push button restart. You'll only be able to shut down with this new button. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Raspberry Pi Weekly. Be sure to join the LinkedIn group and check out previous episodes on LinkedIn Learning. I'll see you next week with more Raspberry Pi adventures.